Tonight, we step inside the silent stone walls of a medieval monastery. In this episode of Boring History for Sleep, we explore what it was really like to spend a night in a medieval monastery. No battles, no drama, just cold corridors, flickering candlelight, and the slow rhythm of monastic life. If you enjoy calm and gently boring history that helps you fall asleep, consider subscribing so you never miss another quiet journey into the past. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let us walk through the heavy wooden doors into the peaceful darkness of the Middle Ages. The sun is beginning to set over the countryside. The fields outside the monastery walls are quiet now. Farmers have already returned home. The wind moves slowly through tall grass, carrying with it the faint smell of earth and distant wood smoke. Ahead of you rises a large stone structure, the monastery. Its walls are thick, solid, unmoving, built to last centuries. Unlike a castle, it does not look aggressive. There are no bright banners, no soldiers shouting commands. Instead, there is stillness. A single wooden gate stands slightly open. As you step inside, the outside world seems to soften. The noise fades. Even your footsteps feel quieter here. The courtyard is simple. A well sits in the centre. A few stone paths divide small patches of herbs: lavender, sage, rosemary. The air smells clean and cool. You hear no laughter, no shouting, only the faint sound of sandals brushing against stone. The monks are already preparing for night. The evening bell. Suddenly a deep bell rings, slow, heavy, measured. The sound does not rush. It does not echo wildly. It settles into the air like a long breath. This is the signal for evening prayer. Inside the main hall, the chapel, rows of wooden benches wait beneath high stone arches. Candles flicker along the walls. Their light is soft, almost golden. The monks enter quietly one by one. They wear long, simple robes. Most are brown or black. Some are grey. The fabric is rough but practical. No one speaks. They bow their heads. And then, very softly, chanting begins. Low voices, slow rhythm, repetitive and calming. The Latin words rise gently into the high ceiling, where they seem to float before fading into the stone. This is Compline, the final prayer before sleep. For medieval monks, the day does not end with conversation or storytelling. It ends with silence. The rule of silence. After the final prayer, the abbot, the head of the monastery, gives a small nod. The monks stand, but they do not begin talking. In many monasteries, especially those following the rule of St. Benedict, strict silence was observed after evening prayer. From this moment until morning, no unnecessary words were allowed. Silence was not punishment. It was discipline. It was peace. It was preparation for rest. You notice how naturally the monks move through the corridors. They do not rush. They do not stomp. Their sandals barely make sound against the stone floor. The monastery at night feels different from the world outside. There are no taverns here, no market noise, no music, only candlelight and breathing. The sleeping arrangements. You might expect each monk to have a private room, but that was not always the case. In many medieval monasteries, monks slept in a large shared dormitory. Long rows of simple wooden beds lined the walls. Each bed had a straw mattress, a wool blanket, sometimes a thin pillow. The mattresses were firm, uneven, slightly rustling when touched. The air in the dormitory is cool. Stone walls hold coldness long after sunset. Small windows high above allow faint moonlight to enter. Candles are placed carefully in iron holders, but most are extinguished before sleep. Fire was dangerous in stone buildings filled with dry straw, so darkness settles in fully. Preparing for sleep before lying down, each monk performs a small routine. Some kneel beside their bed for private prayer. Some quietly adjust their robe. Others simply sit for a moment, breathing slowly. There is no luxury here, no soft mattress, No heavy feather blankets, but there is order and routine is comforting. In medieval times, most people outside monasteries experienced unpredictable nights, noise from animals, drunken travellers, cold draughts, but inside monastery walls nights were structured, predictable, safe. The cold of stone. Even in warmer months, monasteries could be cold at night. Stone absorbs daytime warmth slowly and releases it even more slowly. In winter, dormitories could feel almost icy. Monks often slept fully clothed. Their robes doubled as nightwear. Sometimes they wore simple caps to keep warmth around their heads. There were no fireplaces in sleeping halls. Fire risk was too great. Instead, they relied on thick wool and shared body warmth in large dormitories. You can almost feel the chill in the air, breath faintly visible, blankets pulled tighter, and yet no complaints. Discomfort was part of devotion. The sound of the night. As the final candle is extinguished, darkness becomes complete. Outside, wind brushes against stone. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. Inside the dormitory, the sounds are gentle. Fabric shifting. A quiet cough. Slow breathing. No conversation, no whispers. Just rest. Monastic sleep was not about comfort. It was about discipline. The monks knew that in only a few hours they would wake again, because their night was not uninterrupted. The midnight awakening. Unlike modern sleep patterns, medieval monastic life included waking in the middle of the night. Around midnight or slightly later, another bell would ring. This was for the night office, also called Matins. Yes, they would wake again, in darkness, in cold, to pray. Sleep was divided into segments. First sleep, then prayer, then second sleep, the midnight bell and the second silence. Listen carefully. The monastery is completely dark now. The wind has slowed outside. The countryside is silent. Even the animals have settled. For a few hours the monks have been asleep on their straw mattresses, wrapped in rough wool blankets, breathing slowly in the cold stone dormitory. And then the bell rings. Not loudly, not violently, but firmly. One deep tone, then another. It is some time after midnight. There are no clocks glowing in the darkness, no numbers to check. The monks do not need them. Their lives are measured by bells. You do not hear groaning. You do not hear complaints. Instead, there is movement. Slow, disciplined, quiet. Fabric shifts. Blankets slide back. Sandals touch stone. This is Matins, the night prayer. In the modern world, waking at midnight might feel exhausting, disruptive, unnatural. But in the medieval monastery, this rhythm was normal. Sleep was not a single long stretch. It was divided. First sleep, waking prayer. Second sleep, and tonight you're rising with them. The dormitory is cold, colder than before. The stone walls have fully released the last of the day's warmth. The air feels sharp against your skin. Most monks sleep in their robes, so they do not need to dress. They simply adjust their belt, tighten their cloak, and move toward the corridor. No one speaks. A single lantern is lit at the front of the line. Its small flame throws soft, trembling shadows against the stone walls. The corridor feels longer at night. Footsteps echo slightly. The monastery that seemed calm at dusk now feels vast and hollow. But there is no fear here, only routine. They enter the chapel. It is darker than before. Only a few candles are lit for matins. Their glow barely reaches the high arches of the ceiling. The monks take their places in the wooden stalls. The abbot stands, and then the chanting begins again. Lower than before, slower. Voices still thick with sleep. The sound is almost dreamlike. The Latin psalms rise and fall in steady patterns. Repetition, breath, pause. This prayer can last an hour, sometimes longer. In winter, it feels even longer. But this was not seen as a burden. Night prayer was considered sacred because it required sacrifice, waking in darkness, leaving warmth, standing in cold stone halls. It was a discipline of the body and mind. If you imagine yourself there, you might feel the weight of the hour, your eyes heavy, your breath visible in the candlelight, your voice blending with others in slow rhythm. The outside world remains asleep. Villages are silent. Farms are frozen in darkness. But inside these monastery walls, the night is alive with quiet devotion. Eventually the chanting slows. The final prayer is spoken. The abbot lowers his head, and once again, silence returns. The monks rise. No applause, no conversation, just turning footsteps and the soft flicker of candlelight. They walk back through the corridor. The lantern light trembles against the stone floor. You may wonder if it was difficult to fall asleep again. Surprisingly, for many medieval people, segmented sleep was normal. Even outside monasteries, people often woke for a period in the middle of the night. They would pray, reflect, sometimes even visit neighbours briefly. Then they would return to what was called second sleep. Inside the monastery, this second sleep was shorter, but it was deeply valued. Back in the dormitory, each monk returns to his bed. Blankets are pulled close again. The straw mattress shifts softly beneath weight. The air is still cold, but now the body is slightly warmer from movement. Gradually breathing slows again. The night has been divided, and now it resumes. Outside, frost may be forming over fields. Stars remain sharp in the sky. Hours pass quietly. The monastery is once again motionless, but the rhythm of this place continues beneath the silence. Stone walls, wool blankets, measured bells, and somewhere in the darkness, a mind drifting back into second sleep. Before dawn in the stone abbey. For a while there is nothing. No bells, no footsteps, no chanting, only darkness. The monastery rests in its second sleep. The air inside the dormitory is cold and heavy, unmoving, as if even time itself has slowed within these thick stone walls. Outside, the night is at its deepest point. This is the hour just before dawn, the quietest moment of all. If you are lying on one of those narrow wooden beds, wrapped in coarse wool, you might feel the weight of the blanket pressing gently against your shoulders. The straw beneath you would be firm, slightly uneven, but familiar now. Your body would have adjusted to it over many nights. The stone walls, pale in the darkness, hold the cold like a memory. Small windows set high above the floor show nothing yet. No colour, no light, only blackness. And then, without warning, the bell rings again. Not urgently, not loudly, but clearly. A deep metal tone spreading through corridor after corridor, bouncing gently against stone arches, sliding beneath wooden beams, reaching every corner of the abbey. It is the signal for Lauds, the prayer that greets the coming light. The monks do not leap up. There is no panic, no rush. Instead, there is movement that feels almost rehearsed. Blankets are folded back, sandals slip onto feet, robes are adjusted with slow, practiced hands. Some monks sit for a brief moment on the edge of their beds, allowing their minds to fully wake. Others immediately kneel beside their mattress, whispering a short personal prayer before standing. There is still silence. Even now, no one speaks casually. They move toward the chapel once more. The corridor feels different at this hour. The darkness is not quite as deep. Somewhere beyond the walls, the sky is beginning to soften, though no sunlight has yet appeared. The air smells faintly of cold stone and extinguished candle wax. A lantern is lit again, but this time its glow feels warmer, almost hopeful. Inside the chapel, the candles are relit one by one. Each small flame pushes back a little of the darkness. You can imagine the sound of flint striking steel, the tiny spark, the careful shielding of the wick from draughts. Soon, the stone hall holds a quiet golden shimmer. The monks take their places. Their faces are calm, still marked by sleep but steady. Lord's is different from the midnight prayer. Matins belong to darkness. Lord's belongs to the edge of morning. The chanting begins, soft at first, then stronger. The rhythm remains slow, but there is a subtle lift in the tone, as if the voices themselves sense that night is ending. Outside, the sky shifts from black to deep blue. Birds have not yet begun their calls. The countryside is suspended in that strange, peaceful pause between night and day. Inside the monastery, the psalms echo upward into the vaulted ceiling. The sound does not rush. It flows like a steady stream. If you listen carefully in your imagination, you might notice how the chanting creates warmth. Not physical warmth, but something else. A sense of order, of continuity. These same prayers were spoken yesterday, and the day before, and years before that. Generation after generation of monks rising before sunrise, greeting the light not with noise, but with measured voices and disciplined breath. As the final lines of Lauds are sung, the first thin strand of sunlight touches the highest window. It is faint, pale, almost silver, but it is there. Night has ended. The abbot bows his head. The monks follow. For a few seconds there is complete stillness. Then the routine of the day begins. Unlike modern mornings filled with alarms and glowing screens, a medieval monastery wakes slowly. There is no shouting, no hurried breakfast tables. Instead, monks move quietly toward their next tasks. Some head to the kitchen to prepare simple morning bread. Some go to the scriptorium where manuscripts await careful copying. Others walk toward the gardens where frost may still cling to herbs and vegetables. But before any labour begins, there is a brief period of reflection. This moment, just after Lauds, just before work, is often the calmest of the entire day. The sky now glows a soft grey blue. The courtyard stones are damp with dew. A faint mist hangs low over the ground. You step outside into the courtyard. The well stands silent in the centre. The herb garden releases a cool, clean scent into the morning air. Above, the monastery tower rises steady and unchanged. You realise something important here. The night inside a medieval monastery is not chaotic. It is not restless. It is structured, divided, measured by bells and breath. First sleep, midnight prayer, second sleep, pre-dawn prayer, and now, morning. In the modern world, sleep often feels fragile, interrupted by noise, by worry, by light. But inside these stone walls, sleep and waking follow a rhythm shaped by centuries of repetition. Even the cold has a place in that rhythm. Even the darkness serves a purpose. As sunlight slowly fills the courtyard, the monastery no longer feels mysterious. It feels grounded, stable, predictable. The monks disperse quietly, beginning their simple daily tasks. And if you imagine yourself still standing there in the early morning air, watching the light spread across stone walls, you might notice your own breathing has become slower, more even, calmer. The sun has risen now, but the monastery is still quiet. There is no loud breakfast bell, no crowded tables filled with chatter, no smell of frying food or sweet pastries. Instead, morning begins gently. After Lauds, the monks move toward the refectory, the long stone dining hall where meals are taken in silence. The room is simple, long wooden tables, backless benches, stone floor worn smooth by centuries of sandals. Tall, narrow windows allow pale morning light to spill inside. Dust floats slowly through the beams of sunlight. At one end of the hall stands a wooden lectern. This is important, because even meals are not a time for conversation. As the monks sit down, one monk climbs the small steps to the lectern. He opens a manuscript. While the others eat, he reads aloud. The sound of his voice is steady and calm. Scripture, teachings of saints, reflections on discipline and humility. Breakfast itself is modest. A small piece of coarse bread. Perhaps a bowl of thin porridge made from oats or barley. Sometimes a little cheese. On rare days, a bit of fruit. There is no meat in most monasteries. Many followed strict dietary rules. The bread is dense and slightly dry. The porridge is warm but plain. There are no spices from distant lands on most mornings. No sugar, no sweet distractions, just nourishment. The monks eat slowly, not because they are savouring flavour, but because they are mindful. Every bite is measured. No one reaches across the table casually. No one asks for more salt. The only sounds are wooden bowls touching table, the soft scrape of spoons, the quiet voice of the reader. For a modern mind, this might feel unusual. Silence at breakfast. No small talk. But for the monks, this silence protects the rhythm of the night that just passed. Their minds are still calm from prayer. Their thoughts are not scattered yet. When the meal ends, there is no lingering. The benches shift gently as they stand. A brief bow of the head, and then the hall empties as quietly as it filled. Outside, the day is brighter now. The frost in the garden has begun to melt. A thin mist rises from the ground as sunlight touches it. Morning work begins. Some monks walk toward the gardens. The soil is cool beneath their fingers. They move slowly between rows of herbs and vegetables, inspecting leaves, pulling weeds, checking for insects. Gardening was not simply labour. It was meditation in motion. Each task repeated daily, each movement deliberate. Others walk to the scriptorium. This is one of the most fascinating rooms in the monastery. Large wooden desks sit beneath tall windows. Ink pots rest carefully beside stacks of parchment. The air smells faintly of ink and dried animal skin from the prepared vellum. Here, monks copy manuscripts by hand. Every letter formed slowly, every page measured. Mistakes are rare and costly. A single manuscript could take months to complete. There is no rushing. The scratching sound of quills across parchment becomes the music of the morning. Outside the walls, medieval life could be chaotic, markets loud, fields unpredictable. But inside the monastery, even work follows the same calm pattern that shaped the night. Meanwhile, a few monks are assigned to maintenance tasks, repairing wooden beams, sweeping corridors, tending to the kitchen fire for later meals. Their movements remain quiet. The rule of limited speech often continues into morning hours. Conversation is reserved for necessity. This restraint preserves energy. It keeps the mind clear. And perhaps this is why their divided sleep pattern works so well. Because their entire lifestyle supported rest. No late-night distractions, no sudden noise, no bright artificial light. Even after waking twice during the night, their bodies remained balanced within this predictable cycle. As the sun climbs higher, warmth slowly returns to the stone walls. The dormitory that felt icy before dawn now begins to soften slightly. Blankets folded neatly at the foot of each bed wait for the next night. Everything in this place moves in circles. Night to morning, prayer to work, silence to silence again. If you imagine yourself walking slowly through the courtyard now, you might feel something surprising. Despite the early waking, despite the cold, there is no exhaustion in the air, there is steadiness. The monastery does not demand speed, it demands rhythm, and rhythm can be restful, even in wakefulness. By now, the sun stands higher above the monastery walls. Morning work has been steady but never hurried. In the gardens, soil has been turned, herbs trimmed, water drawn carefully from the well. In the scriptorium, pages have slowly filled with neat lines of ink, letters curved with patience, gold leaf pressed gently onto illuminated borders, and yet, even as tasks continue, there is an awareness that the day is not endless. The monastery does not run on exhaustion, it runs on intervals. Then, once again, the bell rings. This time the sound feels different from the night bells. It carries clearly through bright air, not heavy like midnight, not hushed like dawn. but steady, certain. This is the call for sext, the midday prayer. Work stops immediately. Tools are set down where they are. Quills are placed carefully across ink pots. Garden baskets rest beside rows of vegetables. No one rushes. No one complains about interruption. Because interruption is expected. It is built into the structure of the day. The monks walk back toward the chapel. Sunlight now pours through the tall windows, casting long bright shapes across the stone floor. Dust glows softly in the air. Inside the chapel, the atmosphere feels warmer than it did at dawn. The stones have absorbed some sunlight. The cold has lifted slightly. The chanting begins again, still slow, still measured, but lighter. There is a rhythm now that feels almost familiar to you. Bell, prayer, silence, work, repeated again and again. Midday prayer is shorter than the long night offices, but it is important. It reminds the monks that even in the middle of labour, the day belongs to reflection. When sext ends, there is another quiet transition. It is time for the main meal. Unlike breakfast, the midday meal is slightly more substantial. The refectory fills once again with silent figures in simple robes. Today, perhaps there is vegetable stew, carrots, lentils, cabbage, cooked slowly in a large iron pot. The scent of warm broth spreads gently through the hall. There may be more bread, perhaps a small piece of fish, depending on the monastery's rules and the season. Wine diluted with water is sometimes served, not for pleasure, but for health and tradition. As before, one monk reads from a text while the others eat. The sound of his voice blends with the soft clinking of wooden bowls. No laughter, no storytelling, just nourishment and listening. After the meal, there is a brief period of quiet rest. This is not deep sleep, but a pause. Some monks sit in the courtyard beneath the sunlight, eyes lowered. Others walk slowly along the covered cloister walkway, the long corridor that surrounds the central garden. Footsteps echo gently beneath stone arches. The cloister is one of the calmest places in the monastery, open to the sky in the centre, protected by stone on all sides. Here, wind moves softly through columns. Birds can sometimes be heard landing on the roof. This midday pause matters, because it prevents fatigue from building. Remember, the monks woke in the middle of the night. They rose before dawn. The rhythm depends on small recoveries throughout the day. Outside monastery walls, peasants in the fields might work continuously under the sun. But monastic life balances labour with prayer and rest. As the afternoon approaches, another bell will eventually signal the return to work. The sun will begin its slow descent. Shadows will stretch across the courtyard stones, and the monastery will gradually turn once more toward evening. You begin to understand something deeper now. The night inside a medieval monastery was not isolated from the day. It was part of a complete system. Segmented sleep worked because the entire lifestyle supported it. Limited speech, limited stimulation, repetitive ritual, predictable pauses, no sudden shocks, no bright artificial lights. Even meals were calm. Even work was measured. If you imagine yourself walking slowly through the cloister now, warm sunlight on your robe, distant wind brushing stone walls, you may feel your breathing slow once again. The day is not racing forward. It is unfolding. The warmth of midday slowly begins to fade. It does not disappear suddenly. Instead, it thins. The bright gold light that filled the courtyard softens into something paler, more delicate. Shadows stretch longer across the stone floor. The herb garden that seemed vivid under noon sunlight now looks calmer, its colours slightly muted. Afternoon in the monastery has a different energy than morning. Morning carries freshness. Midday carries balance. But afternoon carries patience. The monks return to their assigned tasks after the brief rest. In the gardens, watering continues carefully. Buckets are lowered into the well. The rope slides against stone with a low, steady sound. Water splashes gently into wooden containers. Hands move slowly through rows of plants, checking leaves, adjusting small supports made of twigs. There is no hurry to finish before a deadline. Time here is not measured in productivity. It is measured in bells. Inside the scriptorium, light from the tall windows shifts across parchment pages. Earlier the sun shone directly onto the desks. Now the angle changes. The glow becomes softer, more indirect. Monks pause occasionally to stretch their fingers. Copying text requires intense focus. Each letter must be clean, each line evenly spaced. Ink must dry properly before the page is turned. A single mistake can mean scraping the parchment gently with a knife to correct it. The scratching sound of quills continues steadily, slow, repetitive, almost like breathing. Elsewhere in the monastery, maintenance work continues. A loose hinge on a wooden door is adjusted. A broom sweeps fine dust from the cloister walkway. Cloth is folded in preparation for evening. Nothing dramatic happens in these hours. No sudden events, no unexpected visitors most days. And that is part of what makes this rhythm so restful. Outside the monastery walls, afternoon might bring noise, merchants calling in village markets, animals restless in fields, children running between houses. But here the thick stone walls filter most of that away. You might hear faint distant sounds carried by wind, but they feel far removed, contained. Gradually the light shifts again. The sky begins to move from bright blue toward a softer tone. The air cools slightly. In autumn or winter the temperature drops more noticeably now. Monks working outside pull their robes a little tighter around their shoulders. In summer, the warmth lingers longer, but even then the quality of light changes. The bell rings again, this time for none, the mid-afternoon prayer. Once again, work stops immediately. No finishing touches. No, just one more minute. The rhythm does not bend. It remains steady. The monks walk toward the chapel. This prayer is shorter, quieter. By now their bodies feel the full length of the day. They woke in darkness. They prayed before dawn. They worked through morning. They ate. They returned to work. And yet, there is no visible exhaustion, because the pace has never been frantic. None marks the slow turning toward evening. After prayer, the final tasks of the day begin. Gardening tools are cleaned and stored. Ink pots are sealed carefully. Manuscripts are covered with cloth to protect them from dust. Kitchen preparations begin for the evening meal. The sky now carries hints of orange near the horizon. Birds become more active for a short while, calling across the fields. Wind brushes gently against the monastery walls. If you stand in the courtyard at this hour, you may feel something subtle. The day is not ending suddenly, it is winding down. Just as sleep does not arrive abruptly, the monastery does not leap from afternoon into night. There is a gradual dimming, a soft descent. The evening meal is lighter than the midday one. Perhaps more bread, a small portion of vegetables, sometimes broth, again eaten in silence, again accompanied by reading. After the meal there is a final period of light work or reflection. Some monks walk the cloister slowly, others sit quietly, watching the sky darken. The first star may appear above the tower, and slowly, almost gently, the monastery prepares to return to the beginning of its cycle. The bell for Vespers will soon ring. Candles will be lit again. Chanting will rise once more beneath the high arches, and eventually Compline will follow. Then silence, then dormitory, then cold stone, then first sleep. You begin to see it clearly now. Life here is circular, not linear. It does not rush forward. It moves in repeating arcs, night to morning, morning to afternoon, afternoon to evening, evening to night again. Segmented sleep is not an inconvenience in this world. It fits naturally into the design of the day. The body is never pushed to extremes. The mind is never overloaded with noise. There are no sudden lights after sunset, no loud conversations at midnight, no unpredictable schedules. As the sun sinks lower, shadows stretch long across the courtyard. The air cools further. Candles are prepared once more. The monastery exhales, and soon it will return to the quiet darkness where this journey began. The sun now rests low on the horizon. Its light no longer fills the courtyard directly. Instead, it glows softly against the upper stone walls of the monastery, turning them briefly golden before fading. The air feels cooler. A gentle breeze moves through the herb garden, carrying faint scents of rosemary and damp soil. Inside, preparation for Vespers has already begun. Candles are being placed carefully along the chapel walls. Small flames flicker to life one by one. Each flame feels important in the growing dimness. The bell rings. Its tone is familiar now. Not startling, not heavy, just steady. This is Vespers, the evening prayer that marks the close of daylight. The monks gather once more in the chapel. The light inside is now a blend of fading sunlight and candle glow. The high stone arches above them appear darker than before. Shadows move gently along carved pillars. The chanting begins, even slower than midday. There is something softer in their voices now. The day's work is complete. The body is slightly tired. The mind has moved through prayer and labour in equal measure. Vespers carries a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the completed day. Gratitude for order. Gratitude for another cycle fulfilled. Outside, the sky shifts from orange to deep blue. Birds grow quiet. The countryside settles. Inside the monastery, the chanting rises and falls in calm waves. The sound fills the space but never overwhelms it. It feels steady, anchored. After Vespers, the monks leave the chapel slowly. This is the final stretch before complete silence. The evening meal, if taken, is very light. Often just bread and water. Conversation remains restricted. The tone of the monastery changes now. Movements become softer, footsteps more careful. Candles are carried through corridors, casting long, wavering shadows across the stone. The cloister, once bright in afternoon sun, is now dim and quiet. The central courtyard grows darker by the minute. A few stars appear overhead. Then comes the final bell of the day. Compline. This is the last prayer before sleep. The chapel is almost entirely lit by candles now. The flicker of dozens of small flames creates a warm, gentle glow that pushes back the darkness just enough. The monks stand in their places. Their robes fall still. Their faces are calm. Compline is different from other prayers. It carries a sense of completion. The chants are low, peaceful, almost like a lullaby. Some monasteries included a final blessing for protection through the night. Protection from fear, from uncertainty, from unseen dangers. But within these thick stone walls, safety feels solid. The final words echo softly against the ceiling. Then silence, complete. The abbot gives a small nod. Candles are extinguished one by one. Darkness returns gradually. The monks walk back to the dormitory. No words are spoken now. The rule of silence fully begins. Sandals brush quietly along stone floors. The air is cooler than it was earlier. Night has fully arrived. Inside the dormitory, the beds wait in neat rows. Straw mattresses, wool blankets, simple wooden frames. Some monks kneel briefly beside their beds. A final private prayer. A final breath of the day. Then they lie down. Blankets pulled close. Robes adjusted. The dormitory grows still. Outside, wind moves softly along the outer walls. Perhaps an owl calls again in the distance. Within minutes, breathing becomes slow and steady. The first sleep begins, and just as before, this sleep is not the end of the night. It is only the first part. The monastery has returned to its beginning. Evening prayer, silence, dormitory, cold stone, slow breathing. The rhythm continues. The monastery is dark again. The first sleep has settled across the dormitory like a soft blanket of silence. Rows of monks lie beneath heavy wooden beams, breathing slowly in the cool air. Outside, the countryside is still, and within these thick stone walls something deeper than routine is taking shape. Because life inside a medieval monastery was not only about prayer times and work assignments, it was about rhythm shaping the mind. When you live inside repetition long enough, something changes. Modern life often feels unpredictable. Bright lights late at night, sudden noise, constant information. But in a monastery, very little surprises you. The bell rings when expected. Meals happen at the same hour. Prayer follows the same pattern. Silence returns each evening. This predictability creates a certain calm inside the body. The monks did not think about sleep the way modern people do. They did not track hours. They did not measure 8 full hours of uninterrupted rest. Their sleep was woven naturally into the structure of the day. First sleep felt deep because the evening had been quiet. No loud entertainment, no heavy food, no intense conversation, only dim candlelight and slow chanting. Then waking at midnight did not feel like disruption. It felt like continuation, a gentle interruption that had meaning. After prayer, returning to bed felt intentional. Second sleep often carried a dreamlike quality, shorter, but calm. You can imagine lying there in the darkness after Matins, the mind already softened by chanting, the body slightly warmed from walking through corridors, breathing slowing again, drifting into second sleep with less restlessness. The monk's mental world was shaped by limited stimulation. There were no bright colours at night, no sudden emotional stories, no arguments before bed. Most of their thoughts were simple. Scripture memorised through repetition, psalms recited daily, familiar passages heard again and again. This repetition may sound dull, but dullness can be peaceful. When the mind is not overloaded, it does not resist sleep. It does not replay dozens of scattered conversations. It does not scroll endlessly through worries. Inside the monastery, silence protected the mind from excess. Even conversation during the day was limited. Speech was purposeful, often quiet, sometimes entirely restricted for certain hours. This meant that when night arrived, the mind had fewer loose threads to untangle. Imagine how different that feels from modern nights filled with light and sound. The monk's sense of time was also different. Without mechanical clocks, time felt circular rather than precise. They knew the rhythm by sound. Bell for matins, bell for lauds, bell for prime, terce, sext, none. Bell for vespers, bell for compline. Each day was like a familiar melody repeated. The same notes, the same pauses. Over years, this repetition shaped how they experienced rest. Fatigue was not something to conquer with caffeine. It was something balanced by rhythm. If the body felt heavy, there would soon be prayer. If prayer ended, there would soon be work. If work ended, there would soon be food. If food ended, there would soon be silence. The mind learned trust. Trust that the cycle would continue. Trust that the next bell would come. Trust that night would always return. Living inside stone walls also created psychological security. The monastery was enclosed, protected. Outside dangers felt distant. Bandits, wars, uncertain harvests. All of these existed beyond the walls, but inside the routine rarely changed. That stability made sleep easier, even if the mattress was rough, even if the air was cold. Because safety and predictability matter more than softness. The monks' dreams were likely influenced by their daily repetition. Chanting heard in the chapel might echo faintly in sleep. Images from illuminated manuscripts might blend into quiet visions. Second sleep often occurred closer to dawn, when dreams are naturally vivid. But unlike modern life, there was no alarm waiting to shock them awake, only the steady bell. And so, night inside the monastery was not chaotic. It was layered. Darkness, chanting, darkness again, then faint light. the mind never travelled far from calm. If you imagine yourself living this way for years, you might notice something else, an absence of urgency. Modern sleep often carries pressure, the need to fall asleep quickly, the worry of not getting enough rest. But the monks did not measure sleep with anxiety. They accepted waking, they accepted interruption, because it belonged to the design. Their rest was distributed across the night and supported by a slow day. Even their physical labour helped. Gardening, walking corridors, standing during prayer. These movements kept the body naturally tired but not overstimulated. No extreme exertion, no late-night stress, only steady energy spent evenly across hours. Now, as the dormitory lies quiet once again in first sleep, you can sense how deeply this rhythm has settled into the walls. The wooden beams overhead have witnessed centuries of this same pattern. Straw replaced again and again, blankets worn and repaired, bells rung thousands of times, and still the cycle continues. The mental calm of monastic life was not accidental. It was designed, built intentionally through repetition, silence, limited speech, structured prayer, and predictable rest. The result was a life where even divided sleep felt whole. The monastery may seem unchanging, stone walls, wooden beams, iron bells, but outside those walls the seasons turn quietly, and with them the night feels different. Let us begin with winter. In winter, darkness arrives early. The sun sinks low in the sky long before the monks are ready for Vespers. Cold air presses against the stone walls from the outside. By late afternoon, frost may already be forming across the fields. Inside, the chapel feels colder than it did in autumn. The stone floor almost seems to hold ice beneath it. When the monks gather for evening prayer in winter, their breath is sometimes visible in the candlelight. The chanting continues as always, but the air is sharper, thinner. After Compline, when they return to the dormitory, the cold feels heavier. Straw mattresses do little to block the chill rising from below. Wool blankets are pulled tightly. Some monasteries allowed an extra layer of cloth in the harshest months. Even so, winter nights were long, and the bell for Matins might ring when the cold feels deepest. Waking at midnight in winter required real discipline. The air bites at the skin. Stone corridors feel even longer in darkness. The small lantern flame flickers more wildly in draughts, and yet the rhythm does not change. The bell still rings. The monks still rise. They walk slowly to the chapel. Their voices, when chanting begins, may feel softer at first, almost as if warming the space through sound. Winter makes the segmented sleep feel longer. The first sleep stretches deeper into darkness. The second sleep after Matins feels precious, short, but comforting. When dawn finally arrives in winter, it comes slowly. Light seeps into the sky, pale and grey. The courtyard stones may be coated with frost. Gardens rest dormant beneath cold soil. Morning work shifts indoors more often. More time in the scriptorium, more time repairing tools or copying texts. The rhythm remains intact, but the body feels the season. Now imagine summer. Summer changes everything about the night. The sun lingers long after Vespers. The sky glows orange and pink across the horizon. Even after Compline, faint light may remain in the air. The dormitory feels warmer. Stone walls no longer carry sharp cold. Windows left slightly open allow soft night breezes to enter. The first sleep may feel lighter in summer, air moving gently, crickets sounding outside. When the bell rings for Matins, the darkness is not as complete. The night feels thinner, less heavy. After midnight prayer, returning to bed feels easier in warmth. Second sleep may blend more smoothly into early dawn, because sunrise arrives sooner. In summer, Lord's greets light that feels strong and golden. The gardens flourish. Herbs thick and fragrant. Vegetables growing quickly. Morning work extends more often outdoors. Longer daylight allows tasks to feel less compressed. But again, the rhythm does not break. The bells still guide the hours, prayer still divides the day. Silence still follows Compline, even in warmth, even in cold. Spring and autumn create their own subtler shifts. In spring, dawn carries the smell of wet soil and new growth. Birdsong begins earlier. The monastery feels slightly more alive with natural sound. In autumn, leaves gather in corners of the courtyard. Wind brushes dry foliage along stone pathways. Evening arrives earlier again. The air feels crisp, but not yet harsh. Throughout all these seasonal changes, one thing remains steady. The cycle. First sleep, midnight prayer, second sleep, dawn prayer, work, meal, work again, evening prayer, silence. This constancy across changing seasons created stability. The monks did not resist winter darkness. They adjusted within it. They did not rush summer light. They folded it into their routine. Sleep, therefore, was not an isolated act. It was connected to weather, to daylight, to temperature. In winter, the body naturally sought deeper rest. In summer, lighter sleep felt natural. The monastery allowed this flexibility without anxiety. There were no artificial lights to confuse the senses, no heated rooms to erase the feel of the season. The monks' bodies moved gently with nature's rhythm, and perhaps this is why waking at midnight never felt shocking, because night was fully night, dark, unlit, clear. When you imagine yourself standing in that courtyard in winter, frost crunching beneath sandals, you feel the sharpness of air against your face. When you imagine summer, warm stone beneath your feet and distant insects humming, you feel softness instead. But in both cases, the bell still rings, and the monks still rise. The sun is lowering once again. Its final light stretches across the monastery courtyard, painting the stone walls in warm gold before slowly fading into amber, then into blue. The day has been steady, work completed, meals taken in silence, prayers spoken at their appointed hours. Nothing dramatic, nothing rushed. Now, evening settles in. The air cools gently. A soft breeze brushes along the outer walls, carrying faint scents of soil and distant fields. Inside the chapel, candles are being lit for Vespers. One by one, small flames rise and flicker. The bell rings. Its tone moves outward into the countryside, then fades. The monks enter quietly. Robes fall into place. Sandals touch stone with soft echoes. Vespers begins. The chanting is slow, measured. There is gratitude in the rhythm. Gratitude not spoken loudly, but felt in the steady rise and fall of voices. The last light of day slips away through high windows. By the end of prayer, the chapel belongs entirely to candlelight. After Vespers, a light evening meal is taken. Bread, perhaps thin broth, water. Silence remains. The reader's calm voice moves gently through the refectory while wooden bowls touch the table. No one lingers long, because night is approaching fully now. The sky outside deepens into darkness. Stars appear above the monastery tower. Then comes Compline, the final prayer of the day. The chapel glows softly. The air feels still. The chanting at Compline is almost like a lullaby, low, peaceful, closing the circle of the day. When the final words fade, candles are extinguished. One by one, darkness returns. The rule of silence begins completely. The monks walk through corridors illuminated only by a single lantern. Shadows stretch long across the stone floor. The dormitory waits, rows of simple wooden beds, straw mattresses, wool blankets folded neatly. Some monks kneel briefly beside their beds. A quiet personal prayer. Then they lie down. Blankets pulled close, robes adjusted. The room grows still. Outside, wind brushes gently along the walls. An owl calls in the distance. Breathing slows, deepens. The first sleep begins. Hours pass. This first sleep is heavy. The body rests fully. The mind drifts through quiet dreams shaped by repetition. Echoes of chanting, images of garden rows, the glow of candlelight. Then, without warning, the bell rings. A deep tone in the darkness. Matins. It is the coldest hour of the night. The dormitory air feels sharp, but no one protests. Blankets are folded back. Sandals touch the floor. The corridor feels long in darkness. The lantern flame trembles slightly. In the chapel, only a few candles are lit. The space feels vast. The chanting begins slowly. Voices thick with sleep at first, then steady. The night prayer lasts long enough to feel meaningful, long enough to feel like sacrifice, but not chaotic, not violent. When it ends, silence returns again. The monks walk back to their beds, the body slightly warmed from movement, the mind softened by chanting. They lie down once more. Second sleep begins. This sleep feels lighter, shorter. Dreams may come more vividly now, as dawn slowly approaches. Outside, the sky shifts almost invisibly from black to deep blue. Then, again, the bell. Lauds. Pre-dawn prayer. The air is still cold, but something has changed. There is a hint of light behind the windows. The monks rise once more, back to the chapel. Candles are relit. The chanting carries a different tone now, one of welcome, welcome to the coming day. As the final psalm is sung, the first thin ray of sunlight touches the highest stone arch. Silver at first, then pale gold. Night has completed its cycle. The monks bow their heads. The chapel fills slowly with morning light. After lauds, they step into the courtyard. Dew rests on stone. The air smells clean, cool, fresh. The long night, divided into prayer and rest, has ended. But it does not feel broken. It feels complete. First sleep. Midnight prayer. Second sleep. Dawn prayer. Each piece supporting the next. Nothing forced, nothing rushed. The monastery does not chase time. It moves with it. And as the sun rises fully, warming the stone walls once more, you understand something clearly. Segmented sleep was not strange here. It was natural, because everything else in life was steady. Silence protected the mind. Repetition calmed the body. Limited light honoured the darkness. Bells guided the hours. The rhythm never demanded perfection. It simply continued. And now, as morning begins again, the cycle is ready to repeat. Stone walls remain still. Candles will be lit again at dusk. The bell will ring again at midnight. And somewhere inside the dormitory, beneath wooden beams, first sleep will return. The circle never breaks. It only turns.